As we're talking about health and fitness for life, there are a lot of formulas that we will be using. We calculated our BMI using a cool little online calculator, so we didn't actually have to do the math. But there is a formula to calculate body mass index. So if you know what body mass index you want to have, and you know how tall you are, how would you determine what your weight should be? Because if I'm looking at this, all I can really control in this formula is my weight. I can't control my height. So my body mass index is a little higher than I want it to be. So if I set a goal that I want a body mass index of 22, how can I figure out what weight I should be to make that happen? Well, this formula just solves for body mass index. So we are going to learn a skill, and it is a life skill, on how to rewrite an equation to solve for what you want. And I'm going to give us some room here to work. The very first thing I'm going to do before I get going is I'm going to change these from words to variables so it makes it easy to work with. Now remember, when you are rewriting, or another way to say that is solving, a formula for a variable, you're going to move a number or variable from one side of an equation to another by using inverse operations from the one that's there. So if you see multiplication, you're going to do the inverse operation, which is division, to get rid of it. So looking at this equation, I can see that weight is what I want to solve for. So I want the W to stay, and I want to get rid of the 703 and the height squared. So let's get rid of our 703 first. It's being multiplied, so I'm going to do the inverse, which is divide, and if I divide one side, I must divide the other by 703. And when I do that, I get that body mass index divided by 703 equals weight divided by height squared. Now again, I want to keep my weight, but I want to get rid of my height squared. Well, the weight is being divided by the height squared, so to get rid of that height squared, I would need to multiply. And I'm going to multiply this side by height squared, and I'm just going to put it over 1 since we've got a fraction there, so it's easy to see how they cancel. And then I'm going to multiply height squared on the other side. Now I could also put that over 1, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to write it down. All right, now my h's cancel, my heights cancel, so I end up with height squared times body mass index divided by 703 equals weight. And I'm going to rewrite this so the weight is first. You don't have to, but I just like to do that. This is my rewritten equation. Weight equals height squared times body mass index times 703. Now I can use this to figure out what my weight should be. So like I said, I'm going to try a body mass index of 22. That's what I want to get. So I'm going to replace the B with 22, and my height is about 64 inches. I'm 5'4". So 64 inches squared times 22 divided by 703. I'm going to put that in my calculator, and I'm going to get that my weight needs to be 128.182, and I'm just going to round that to 128 pounds. All right, well, that is pretty skinny. So I'm thinking, what if I wanted a body mass index of 23? And since I have this cool formula that I've just rewritten, I can play around with that. And this time, I'm going to put 23 in for the body mass index, and it tells me that my weight should be, and I'm going to round that to 134. So looking at these two things, I'm going to make a strategic decision and say, hey, I think that I want to shoot for a weight of 130. That is going to be my target weight. And this rewriting of these equations allowed me to play around with this information to make a target goal for myself, a target weight. All right, so this is a hugely important skill. It's not necessarily easy, but it's very, very useful. Here's another formula that you might use a lot. Is distance equals rate times time. And I want to know, let's say I'm going somewhere, it's, 300 miles away, and I think it's I want to take 4 hours to do that with. So how fast do I need to go? What's my rate? Well, I can't really tell from this formula because it solves for distance. So I'm going to rewrite this formula for rate. So I want to keep the rate. I want to get rid of the time. It's being multiplied, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is divide. If I divide one side, I must divide the other, and I get that my times cancel off, and distance divided by time equals rate. Now, again, I like to rewrite this where what I'm solving for is on the left. So rate equals distance divided by time. Now I can use this, and I can say, I'm going 300 miles. I want to take 4 hours to do it. So how fast do I need to be traveling? Ooh, that's 75 miles an hour is what I have to average, and that is pretty stinking fast. So I'm going to make the decision to allot more time and take more than 4 hours to do this trip. Again, my whole goal in rewriting these formulas is to be able to make better decisions. All right, let's practice a few more. This formula is the area for a triangle. One area equals 1/2 base times height. And we know that the inverse of multiplication is division. The inverse of division is multiplication. But what I want you to notice, if I keep B, which is my base, I want to solve this for base, because I know my area and my height, but I don't know the base of my triangle, I've got to get rid of the 1/2 and the h. So the inverse of multiplying by a fraction is multiplying by the fraction's reciprocal, and that is the fraction flip. So if I have 1/2, if I flip that, the reciprocal is 2/1, or just 2. So to get rid of that 1/2, I'm going to have to multiply both sides by 2. On the right side, I'm going to say multiplying by 2/1, so that I can clearly see how the 2's will cancel. And then on the left side, I'm just going to multiply by 2. So I end up with 2 times the area equals the base times the height, because my 1/2's canceled. Now, again, I want to keep the b, so I have to get rid of the h. It's being multiplied. The inverse is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by h, and I get that my heights cancel. And again, rewriting this, my base equals 2 times the area divided by the height. And I could use this to play around to figure out what different bases I need based on my area and height. Now, I'm putting a star by this because remember, when you multiply by a fraction to get rid of it, you must multiply by the reciprocal. You'll have some of that in your homework. All right, this is the formula for perimeter of a rectangle. Perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And I want you to solve this for the width. So this is a little bit different because we have multiplication, which we know how to get rid of by division, but we also have addition. The inverse of addition is subtraction. So if I want to keep my width, I have to get rid of the 2 times the length and the 2 that's being multiplied by the w. Since the 2 times the length is being added to 2w, I'm going to get rid of that first because you always try to get rid of whatever's added and subtracted before you get rid of what's multiplied and divided. To get rid of 2l, since it's being added, I'm going to subtract. If I subtract from one side, I have to subtract from the other. My 2l's will cancel and give me 0. I don't write down 0. I'll just bring down my 2 times the width. And on the left-hand side, P stands for perimeter and L stands for length. So I can't subtract those two, so I'm going to write them both down. Perimeter minus 2 times the length. Now again, I'm keeping my W, so I have to get rid of the 2 that's being multiplied by it. I'm going to do that by dividing both sides by 2. Now the real key here is on the left side, I've got an expression. So I must divide everything on that side by 2. So my rewritten formula becomes width equals perimeter minus 2 times the length, that whole quantity divided by 2. And again, I could use this to make decisions. Now, I'm going to have one last one here, and that is the formula for the volume of a cylinder, and I'm using this because it's got some odd things in it. It's got the pi symbol, and it's got r squared. Now, remember that pi just stands for a number, and r, which is the radius, squared, just stands for a number as well. So both pi and r squared are multiplied by the height, and I want to solve for height. So to get rid of them, I'm going to divide, and since I'm kind of lazy and I'm going to divide them both, I'm going to do them at the same time. So I'm going to divide this side by pi times r squared, and if I do it to this side, I must do it to the left side. So I get that my pi times r squared cancel each other off, and my height equals my volume divided by pi times the radius squared. All right, I think you have what you need to create your, or to do your practice.